or forever. I'm yelling no more talking, unless it's the truth. You in that bullshit walking. When I'm in
Yes, you're back with another edition of EDI Means Talking My Truth, man. Let's get into it right quick. I recently had the opportunity to run into a long-time comrade of mine in the music business, a legend in this shit from the South, from New Orleans. He is responsible for what I call a hip-hop standard. There's a few hip-hop standards, and when I say a hip-hop standard, I mean you will hear this song until the end of time. You will not be able to go a year without hearing this record. And that particular record is called Back the Ass Up. Yeah, man. Juvenile.
Back that thing up. Girl, you look good, want to back that thing up. You a big fine woman, want to back that thing up.
Connected with Juvenile over in that Lemonade dispensaries in Los Angeles. Shout out to Steve Lobel. We working. You already know what it is. One of my guys in this business for a lot of years. So Juvenile had an event to launch his new cannabis strain, and he doesn't live too far. Well, Lemonade is not too far from where I live. And so I pulled up and got a chance to chop it up with him right quick, man. And it had me thinking about the time we almost signed to Cash Money Records. Yeah, man, we was this close to being on a label, twice to be exact. The first time we connected with Cash Money was down at Rap-A-Lot when we were recording, and they was on tour, and they pulled up, and they was all on a tour bus, man, and they was already moving, and this was before Juvenile's first single, Ha, came out. And so we got a chance to connect with them. They came through, they heard we was out there, they wanted to meet us, they wanted to record some music with us, man, and got a chance to chop it up with them, and got a chance to hear Baby tell me to my face that he modeled the Hot Boys after Tupac and the Outlawz, after he had got out of jail and wanted to put a new crew of youngsters together. And he looked at what we were doing with Pac and said, I want to do something similar to that. And he's not the first major CEO to tell me they modeled what they were doing after us. There was another pretty famous one that we all know. I'm gonna tell y'all about that on another E.D.I Mean Talk My Truth. But right now we're talking about Cash Money Records in the time we almost signed to them. So we connect, they come through the studio, we already in there working, and the chit chat to start happening. Like, yo, we should do a song together. We should, the Outlawz and the Hot Boys, man, that'd be major. And this was potentially for a Rap-A-Lot album that we would drop on Rap-A-Lot. I think the year is maybe 2002, 2003, something like that. Maybe even earlier than that. Maybe around 2001, 2000. Anyway, we get to recording the song. The great Mr. Lee cooks up something real quick. And now it's time to go in. Sidebar, BG wasn't there. BG was locked up at the time. And so he's not on the song. But Lil Wayne, Young Turk, and Juvenile were all in the building. It was me, Napoleon, Castro, and Noble. I kicked that song off. I do the hook on that song. The name of the song was called What Side You On? We had fun doing that record, man. I mean, Lil Wayne was so young and so small that they had to pull in a stool for him to rap on. You know what I'm saying? Because the mic couldn't go low enough to reach him. And so they had to pull in a stool for him to rap on. And I just remember him going in there like, yo, what's this little kid about to do? Whose kid is this? You know what I mean? Like, no, real talk. I was like, yo, he rap? I didn't know about Cash Money like that. We was in the South, and so when they was pulling up, Lil J and the rest of the Rap-A-Lot crew, they was all like, somewhat excited that Cash Money had pulled up because they had been moving so much units. The way I first heard about Cash Money was when they got that deal, the $30 million deal from Universal. So now I'm like, who's Cash Money Records? In the South for years, moving units. They had a beginning slot of rosters that they started with. Then they had the roster that they had when I met them. Manny Fresh wasn't there either. So yeah, we recorded the song, man, and you know, they went in there and did their thing. And I remember Baby telling me, you know, yeah, we about to drop this record on Juvenile. He the first artist. We're gonna drop that first, and it's called High. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, okay. Because at the time, the video had been circulating a little bit, and I had caught a glimpse of it. Like, oh, okay, this shit's major right here. That's dope. I like that. Fire. And so, after our deal with Rap-A-Lot fell through, we were free agents, and we had got word that Cash Money was interested. We was in LA, and they were in San Diego recording some stuff for MTV, and they invited us down. So we mounted up and went down and chopped it up with them, and that was the first time I was in a hotel room with Baby and Slim, me and my Uncle G. We sitting there chopping it up, just getting familiar with each other. We playing some music for him, and Lil Wayne walks in. Lil Wayne walks in, and he didn't see us because we were kind of like sitting off to the side. It was a big suite. And he walked right up to Baby and gave him a kiss. Now, at the time, I thought, okay, that's different. You know what I'm saying? But to me, I took it as, you know, what some fathers do with their sons, or, you know, maybe on some mob type thinking. You know, because in the mafia, sometimes men kiss other men on the cheek, of course. I didn't look at it as a homosexual thing or anything like that. But after that, it had came out through a picture or something like that, that Wayne and Baby would kiss when they would see each other, and it became this whole big thing. Like I said, we played some music for them. We went down to the MTV set. They did what they had to do. Tyrese was hosting at the time. Tyrese invited everybody up to his house, or a house he was staying at while he was working at MTV. Big mansion, top of the hill. I remember it took us forever to get there. And when we got there, it was nothing but chicks running around. and you know, Tyrese was living the life of a young, you know, single star, with all the trappings to go with it. Now it got time to, you know, it was getting time to negotiate the deal and figure out the numbers. And when we got to it, you know, my lawyer was at the time, our lawyer at the time was concerned about sitting around and not putting out product and being shelved, which happens a lot in the music industry. Artists get shelved for a different array of reasons. Sometimes because the music that the label is expecting from them doesn't come. Sometimes because differences in opinions on marketing, whatever the case may be. Other times, artists are shelved because they're in direct competition with a label's artists. So let's just use Tupac for example. If you already got Tupac and you see another Tupac coming along, or somebody that's in direct competition with a Tupac, even though we all know Pac ain't got no competition, but let's just say, hypothetically speaking, somebody comes along and they might be in direct competition, a label will sign that artist and shelve that artist just to keep him out the way for a little while. So my lawyer put a stipulation in the contract that said if we weren't dropped that by a certain time, Cash Money Records would owe us money. That ended up being a problem. And it may have, you know, told us, you know, why we shouldn't sign Cash Money Records, which Juvenile said to me in the beginning when we was chopping it up. He was like, yeah, y'all might not want to do that. And I was like, why? You seem like, it seemed like it's all good. And he was like, man, I ain't seen a royalty check since I've been here. But he also stated, like, I'm paid, you know what I'm saying? I got houses, I got cars, I'm good. I got money, but I haven't seen a royalty check yet. And in the music business, that could be a problem, because how are you knowing how much money you're generating for the label, how many records you sell, how much you owe the label, how much they have to recoup you? Your royalty statements and checks tell a lot, even though it could be manipulated, of course, but you still want to have that. And they had been on the label for a minute up until that point. And shortly thereafter, things started to break up there, and eventually Cash Money, put it all on Wayne. And I remember Baby telling us that, like, I got artists, I got artists that got problems and ain't putting out the records that's doing what I wanted to do. He said, man, I'm gonna bet it all on Wayne if I got to. I'm gonna bet it all on Shorty. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna put it all on my son. And this is why we in the process of negotiating our deal with him. And he eventually did that, and look what happened. Salute to Cash Money Records, man. One of the greatest labels in hip hop history. You cannot deny the music, the amount of records they sold, the success they've had, from Wayne, Juvenile, Hot Boys, the Big Timers, all the way up to Drake and Nicki. Success for over a big part of the years, you know what I mean? At the time, they came out of New Orleans when No Limit was on fire. I was more of a fan of Cash Money's music than No Limit. If I gotta be honest, I felt like their artists were better and more talented. I loved Manny Fresh's production. That was one of the reasons we was excited to get down there to Cash Money and do the deal, was because of Manny Fresh and his amazing production. We couldn't wait to get in the studio with Cash Money. And there was a lot of nights and a lot of different things that transpired between us that led us to wanting to do this deal, and both of us wanted to do the deal, man. Shout out to Slim from Cash Money Records, because Slim was one of the ones that was really pushing to get the deal done, man. I always will have love for Slim. He loved our music, you know what I mean? They were all big fans of Tupac, of course. Like I said, Baby said what he said to me. This is a true story. This is a fact. We did eventually meet BG. One of the times we was down there with Cash Money. Of course, go back in my old E.D.I. Mean Talk My Troops, and you could see why I tell you the story about how the time we were down there and we ran into Mike Tyson and did an impromptu show at the House of Blues in New Orleans, man. This was around the time they were doing the Ball Blocking movie. So many years, so many memories, man. Again, like I said, we tried a second time. That didn't work. Went back and forth to New Orleans a few times to get it done. Had almost started, man. There's actually an episode of MTV Cribs with Baby on it, and they had our Cash Money chains waiting, you know what I'm saying? And Baby makes mention of it. He don't say our name, but he says, these my new chains for this new group we about to sign, and it's 4 Cash Money millionaire chains on the table or the bed or whatever. And so, like I said, man, we were this close, man. I remember being in a club in Atlanta one time. The word had got out that we were doing a deal, and they was talking about it on the radio, and they knew I was in the club, and they say on the microphone, shout out to E.D.I. Mean and the Outlawz on their new deal with Cash Money Records, and the fucking club was nuts, you know what I'm saying? And like, people was waiting on that to happen, but unfortunately it did happen. Business first, and we were doing so well independently at the time And the number one thing that we had was freedom. And we just didn't want to be locked down and not be able to do what we wanted to do. Independent had spoiled us to a certain point, you know what I mean? And we were feeling like that would slow us down. So the deal didn't happen, but again, I got nothing but love and respect for the whole Cash Money team. We're definitely running the Wayne years after, and it was always love. Juvenile, like I said, ran into him and it was love. It was like, you know, two cats running into each other after a long time, reconnected, and it was good to see him. Good to see him still doing good. Good to see him still moving around. I know that Cash Money has been doing some things together, man. I hope we get another Hot Boys album. I would love that. You know what I'm saying? E.D.I. Mean, talk my truth. I'm gone.
Let's get it. Let me talk my truth. You just want the facts. I'ma talk my truth. We got that real to real. Let me talk my truth. We gon' keep it a bill. I got to talk my truth. That official tissue, man. Let me talk